The rest is history.
Full-time.
Got all the gear
Yeah.
and you've got some idea how to use it by then.
Feet are weird.
The most obscure place to go is Patagonia.
A little bit short-changed in a way, because it was really easy to find them. It's a lot more organic. So
Like, small world to a
and
T.
I'm just going to give you my life story here. I'll make it brief.
The thing is, nobody's doing a degree in clog making.
Yeah.
Without furniture making, I wouldn't have had the confidence to start making clogs.
Hi, welcome back to This Is Mint, a podcast that talks to the creatives, the makers and the movers and the shakers from the north of England. Hope everybody's well out there. And yeah, penultimate episode. If you haven't listened to Becca's episode, then please go back and listen to it. It's really good. She's very cool. And there's also a few more episodes. If you want to go and listen, you can listen on YouTube, Spotify and Amazon Music. And yeah, go and listen. Go and find some things out. For those people who are maybe new and haven't seen this yet, I'm Heather. I'm an accordionist and clog dancer from Stockport. And I kind of just decided one day that I wanted to start a podcast about all the amazing creatives in the north of England. And here we are, 5 episodes in. So yeah, I hope everyone's well. Festival season is very much in full swing. I was in Sicily last week for Alcantara Festival in Catania, which was insane. It was amazing. Kind of one of those festivals or one of those gigs that really just reinstills that kind of faith in being a musician and doing this really crazy job. Being an emerging artist at the minute is wild. So getting to do a gig like that kind of like refuels the fire a little bit. It was really, really nice. And then got a few more coming up with the lads. We're going to Broadstairs Folk Week and Beautiful Days next week. So lots of driving, but also lots of fun. Speaking of folk festivals, my guest that I've got on this week is the incredible Simon Brock, who is a clog maker from Sheffield. As I've already said, and people may already know, I am a clog dancer. I've been clog dancing since I was like teeny tiny, and I learned that through school and have been clog dancing ever since. And it was so nice to actually get to sit down and talk to an actual clog maker about what they do and how they do it, and find out all about the history of clog making and clog makers in the UK. And yeah, Simon's great, and it was so good to visit his workshop, which he'd only been in for a week, which I can't imagine what that must be like to have to move hundreds of pairs of clogs, but we move. So this is going to be Simon Brock, and I hope you enjoy. Simon, welcome to This Is Mint.
Thank you.
How are you?
Oh, I'm very well, thanks.
Good. So we are currently in your workshop space in Sheffield. How long have you been here for?
Just over a week.
Oh my God, that's like such a short. It looks like great for only being here such a short amount of time. How was the move?
Protracted.
Yeah?
Yeah. Went easily at first, and then got into the weeds of it just gets harder and harder to make a decision about whether something's rubbish or worth keeping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as you get further and further through the pile.
Yeah. Was there anything that was like a real debate on what to keep and what not to keep?
In the end, I was quite ruthless.
Really?
Because it's a smaller space than the one I've moved from, so something had to go.
Yeah. So I've obviously known you from, you've like rewooded my clogs and you've done, I think, nearly all of my friends' different types of clogs and stuff. So I have to ask, like, how did you start? How did you get into clog making?
Originally, I'm a furniture maker,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I did when I left school. I went to Leeds College of Art and did a HND in furniture making and restoration. And I'm just going to give you my life story here. I'll make it brief.
Okay.
So I did do furniture restoration for work for a couple of years. Had a midlife crisis when I was 23. Went to work on a sheep farm in Canada, and then came back at a loose end. I did odds and ends and met Trevor Owen at Whitby Folk Week in 2010, who is, for anybody who's not come across the name, was a clog maker until fairly recently. From the 80s, through the 80s, 90s, I think. I suppose the 90s was probably his heyday when there weren't many other makers around. Certainly very influential in terms of the dance clogs he was making, as distinct from, I think he really helped to move clogs away from being industrial footwear towards dance footwear, and sort of bridge that gap between the old boys who were making for industry and the my generation ish of clog makers who are almost exclusively making for dancers. So a really good place to start, and I just asked him, so how do you make these then? And we had a conversation. I must have asked the right questions, and he said, I'll show you. So I went and stayed at his house for a week, and he showed me everything he could.
Mm-hmm.
With the furniture making background, the sole making seemed fairly intuitive, and there's some weird and wonderful tools to get to grips with, but I understood pretty quickly the theory, at least, of how the soles were made. Leatherworking I had no experience of at all, so then I went and taught myself leatherworking. I did that for a bit longer than was truly necessary, almost to the point where I forgot why I was doing it, and I forgot that the mission was clogs, until Trevor collared me and hinted heavily in 2016, I suppose that would have been, that he was retiring soon.
Right.
And he more or less said, why aren't you making clogs yet? What's going on, you know? So then I picked up a little bit where I'd left off with him, having then got the leatherworking skills. And we did this sort of distance learning apprenticeship thing, which consisted of me going a couple of days at a time to see him. He'd show me some things that I could try. I'd come back, I'd do those things as well as I could with the equipment and the setup I had, which was pretty rudimentary and consisted of the kitchen and the garden and a bit of space in a friend's workshop that I borrowed on a Monday afternoon and this kind of thing. And I think I did that 3 or possibly 4 of those visits of him critiquing what I'd already done and giving me a new exercise. And eventually he said, well, you probably better start trying to sell these now, otherwise you just run out of money effectively and morale. And so that would be late 2017, I think, was my last visit to him. And then I found a workshop space in Netherthorpe, which is sort of down in the city centre, and started there April 2018. And that's it, really. Been
the rest is history.
Full time since then.
That's amazing. So I guess with your I guess like with woodworking and things, and obviously the half of your clogs are made of wood. How is it different working with like creating a sole, like a wooden sole for clogs, compared to like making like furniture and things like that?
It's a lot more organic. So the shapes, there's compound curves that you have to carve into a clog sole to accommodate the shape of the foot, because feet are weird. Compare that with furniture making. There's a lot of straight lines, a lot of 90-degree angles. You can draw the thing out and check against your drawings, and you can measure everything. But it's not like that with clog soles. It's they're more, you couldn't ever draw a plan and an elevation of a clog sole and expect someone to make it just on that information. It's more touchy-feely.
Yeah, and how do you mentioned before about the kind of the difference and change in the generations of going from making for industry and making for dancing. Could you maybe tell me a little bit about what those differences are in those clogs, like clogs that are made for industry and those that are made for dancing?
Mainly in just the finesse of them, because the clogs that were made for industrial wear were quite disposable, really, and so there wasn't a lot of love put into them. They were normally made with factory-made soles, so machine-made soles that were churned out in their hundreds of thousands on copy lathes, uppers that were made in upper factories, and then clog makers who put the two things together were just assembling two pre-made components almost. That's not to denigrate their skill, but it is, I think, the big difference. So the industrial clogs were bought in soles, bought in uppers, or they might have made their own uppers or whatever, but it was certainly a case of bashing them out as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And for dancers, the clogs have to be more. They have to be prettier, and the shape of the sole is different for dancing than for walking. Not much, but a little bit. And the main thing is just the care and the attractiveness of them. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the clogs I do have designs etched into the surface which are personal to the customer. Nobody's having that done when they're just wearing them in a steel mill until they destroy them.
Yeah. So when you were working with Trevor, what was it like? Kind of that process from being like, right, I've got my sort of woodworking skills and leatherwork skills, and kind of putting that all together. Like when you kind of had that first few attempts of like making them, what was that like, and were there any sort of like really epic fails, or did it all just kind of fall together naturally? Like tell me about some of the process behind like those first few pairs of clogs that you made.
I don't know there were epic fails.
Well, that's good. Not that I'm assuming there was any.
I just said when you said epic fails, but there weren't actually. But I think they were just sort of mundane fails, I suppose, rather than anything catastrophic. And wow. It was just the fact that the first few pairs I made, I thought, well, they look terrible. I've done everything right, and yet they're abysmal. It didn't take that long to get the hang of it. I would say by sort of pair 25, 30, I think I probably made something that I would now criticise quite heavily, but they're not anything to be ashamed of. The early ones are. The very early ones are, definitely.
Do you still have them, the very early ones?
I have some. Yeah. I've got a little archive of. I've got the first. So I've got the first 3 pairs I made, I think, post that second spell with Trevor. Yeah. That I remember hawking around Sidmouth Folk Week. I went to Sidmouth and just gate crashed all the stepping and Northwest workshops and put my 3 pairs of clogs out on the table and handed out some kind of not quite handwritten flyers, but it wasn't far off, just, oh look, I'm doing this now and I'm going to be doing it seriously soon. So yeah, I've got those, and I've got the first pair that I ever made and sold. They returned to me in a broken state, but the lady I made them for said, well, you make me a new pair, because you're better now than you were then. But do you want these back? So I took them. So I've still got those in there.
It must just be so nice to have those kind of those ones that kind of are like so defining in your journey. Must be like quite a nice thing.
Yeah, I think I've got to keep those. And actually, one of the shonkiest pairs I ever made, I got married in.
Really? Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, it is maybe, but now look at the wedding photos and think, oh, I wish you'd just cut the feet off. But I also know that if I hadn't worn the clogs, I would have always thought I should have worn clogs for my own wedding.
Were they just what were they like? Were they just
very clunky?
Yeah.
They were brown uppers, and I should have dyed the edges of the soles, so they had these very kind of bright white soles, which I now look at and think, well, they're at least twice as thick as they needed to be.
Right.
They're just quite clumsy, really. But yeah, like I say, if I'd just worn a pair of shoes, I think I'd have always thought that was an opportunity missed.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So obviously you obviously learned all of the technical stuff from Trevor and things. Is there any kind of bits of advice that he gave you? I guess being in this world of clog making, it's I guess not a very big sort of scene to be a part of, but clogging in general is such a big scene. Did he give you any sort of advice about like just being in this sort of clog world?
Probably. I can't necessarily remember any of that because I'd already been doing Morris dancing myself for 10 years or something by the time I started making clogs in earnest.
What kind of Morris did you
well, I started
do?
with Flag and Bone Gang, which is whatever that style is. It's kind of its own thing, really. It's like East Yorkshire, a little bit Molly-ish, I suppose. I did do a little bit of Cotswold once. And I've been in Handsworth sword dancers for 12 years, I think, something like that. So I was already in the Morris and folk world, I knew a lot of people, and they knew me, so I think that helped. And something I found over the years of doing it is that just a little bit of understanding of dancers' priorities, I think, is appreciated. So the fact that when I get an order from Saddleworth, I instantly know I could try and get those done for Rushcart. But even just mentioning that, I think they appreciate that I know what they're doing, that I understand their what matters to them, sort of thing. I can't think of any particular nuggets of information that Trevor gave me on that score, but he was very, very free with his advice. And Rick Wawitsky as well.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that because I heard that you got only because I have the clogs that I have are his uppers, but I was going to say that I'd heard that you have a lot of his like tools and patterns and things.
Yeah,
like that?
and the lasts, they're all his.
Really?
Yeah. The workbench that he got second hand in 1970 something from a guy who was 80 years older. I can't remember. I've got I spent an afternoon with him actually. I've got a load of audio of his reminiscences, so that's sort of safe if I can remember where I've put it. The thing with Rick was, I first of all thought it's going to be great fun to track him down because he'd retired, and some people said he was dead, which I knew not to be the case.
Yeah.
Because, but it was still quite. It seemed like it was going to be a bit of an adventure to find him. And I just mentioned it to the woman who was living next door to me at the time. She said, "Oh, my dad knows him. My dad goes drinking with him."
No way.
Here's his number. That's
insane. That's like small world to a T.
And he just lives in some one-horse village in Somerset as well. Wow. And this was in my next door neighbour in Sheffield, he's a friend of her dad. So I felt a bit shortchanged in a way because it was really easy to find him.
Going through the Alps and then coming back, going back to that sheep farm in Canada. Maybe he's there and I
thought, well, there's some ambiguity about whether he's even alive. This is going to be a great chase, and then it was really easy. But so I rang him and introduced myself, and he was very forthcoming with help right from the beginning. But the interesting thing with Rick was I ascertained that he had all this stuff, mainly the lasts, but patterns as well, which have proved very useful. A lot of nails and some old tools and things like that. And I went to see him in Somerset, and I said, we had a good chat, and he gave me lots of advice. And I said, so what about your stuff then? Can I have your stuff? I was a bit more tactful about it than that. And he was like, I don't know, because this is all a big part of my identity as he's not been making clogs for 20 odd years, but it's still a big part of his past, and I completely understand that. So I went back to him a few months later with some clogs that are possibly those 3 pairs that I took to Sidmouth, actually, because I guess I'd have gone to Sidmouth and then gone to see him and said, look, I am serious about this. And I think once he could see that I was serious about it, the floodgates opened really. And I opened the back of the van and was like, here, have this while you're taking it. Have this. So it was all the lasts and the patterns and the nails and everything, but it was a load of other stuff as well, including some little kind of archival bits almost that are his little stamp that he used to stamp his invoices with and things like that. So some quite personal things. And I keep in touch with him. I send him a Christmas card every year. And,
as a clog dancer, I've heard all of these names throughout the years, but you never really know that much about these different people because you kind of go particularly when I was a lot younger, you kind of go for clogs and that's kind of it. But then it's kind of like finding out all this, like the behind the scenes of it, is very nice to do. Yeah,
and when you encounter the clogs, because I can recognise Trevor's and I can recognise Rick's and Phil Howard as well, who's still making, obviously. I can tell
theirs, and I can tell some other makers as well. I'm not an expert on that kind of thing. There are people who are, but those three I can tell. And I don't know. It's just nice when I get a pair of Ricks through to Rewood. I think, well, they were originally made.
Yeah, with them.
On these exact same lasts.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, the history of those. I think Rick stopped making in the mid-90s or something. So already those are quite, even if they were among the last pairs he made, they're still 30 years old, which is. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not
shockingly, that's right. Yeah.
Most people don't keep a pair of shoes for 30 years, and yet his are in circulation. There was a guy called John the Fish in Cornwall who.
Do you know where the name came from? That's a great name.
He was a folk singer. I think he was from London originally, and that's a bit sad actually because I tracked him down based on. I've got this old leaflet of clog makers from 1983 or something, with all their names and addresses listed. And I think what happened was his phone number was on there, and I thought, well, he might still be at the same address. So I just bashed out his phone number, but put a 1 in the area code, and it was him.
Wow!
Yeah. So I spoke to him as well, and I arranged to meet him because Cornwall's a long way to go from Sheffield. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, I'm in Cornwall for a holiday. Can I come see you? In the end, when I got there, he had to go abroad to, I think his daughter and granddaughter. There was some kind of family thing where he had to go and meet a new baby that was a member of the family. So he said, oh, sorry, I can't do it. So I missed him then, and then there was another time when I missed him as well. And then the next time I was going to try and see him, he died.
Oh no!
Yeah, I found out because I think I was going to try and see him in the June or something, and I found out he passed away in January, February, or something like that. So I'd have loved to have met him as well.
Oh,
kind of
what a name! What a name! I bet the person met up to the name as well.
But the point being anyway that I've also mended clogs of his, and I think they're probably from the mid-70s.
Wow!
And people are still dancing they're still dancing in the uppers. It all gets a little bit triggers broom after a while.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about the more sort of design side of it, because with the dancing clogs you mentioned before about you get patterns and all sorts of things carved into them, and this might be you sort of debunking things that I've been told as a young person, but you also mentioned just then that different makers have different designs that they put in. Do you have a design that you would say is your sort of particular design that you have, and how did you kind of come to having that as yours, your trademark, if you like?
My standard crimp, if that's the name for the
crimp,
design,
that's it.
Crimp, yeah. If people can't think of anything personal, because most of the time people say that they want something that's personal to them, and I'm always happy to accommodate that. If they can't think of anything, or they just want a crimp but they don't know what, then I do have one. It's just a quite simple stylised sort of 2 sprigs of leaves but on the sides. So most people's crimps historically have been something over the toe, and I thought, well, first start, it's easier to crimp on the quarters than it is on the vamp, so that's quite one reason for doing it. I just thought it'd be nice to have a crimp on the quarters at the sides, rather than over the toes, so it's a bit different. But I do also have a brand that I put on the soles, so there's no every pair of soles that I make has got Simon Brock branded into them, and a serial number as well, so you can see how many. But that was something that Trevor mentioned once, just in passing. He said, "Oh, I wish you knew how many pairs I've made." So I thought, right, I'm going to number them all. When I retire, I'll be able to say, I made 4,821.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you? Can I ask you, what is the sort of most, I guess, unique or maybe wacky design you've ever been asked to make or carve it, design into a pair of clogs? Something that you could have guessed 50 times and you never would have thought that would go on a pair of clogs, kind of thing.
There was someone who got me to make a pair of boots and crimp them as though they were cowboy boots, which was quite interesting.
Really?
So
wow!
She sent me a picture of some proper Western boots.
Yeah.
And she didn't want the kind of she didn't want them to look like they were cowboy boots. She wanted them to look like clogs, but she wanted the crimping on them to look like the sort of carving that's done on Western carving. So that was quite a challenge because they didn't fit really. They're not the same shape of shoes, so I had to kind of monkey around with the design to get it to work. So that was quite unusual. There's all sorts. Nothing hilarious that I can think of, really.
No. Have you ever had like, this is really right, this has just popped into my head, but have you ever had like anyone ask for like pets or anything like that, or like animals and things like that?
Yeah, so I've done cats. I did flamingos once, but that's for something quite specific. But no, people understand that there's a limit to how complex the crimp can be because of the nature of the tool that does it. So if anyone asked me for a portrait of the king or something like that, I'd probably say, well, I can do like a cartoon of a bloke wearing a crown if you want. I can't make it.
Is it just one specific tool that you use, or is it like one that has different widths on it?
It's not, no, it's just one. And you can get some really lovely effects with it, but the more and more detailed you get, the less and less able it is really to do that. So.
One of the other things I think that I think is what I kind of came to know you for, like I think when you had kind of just started, was that you use not just sort of what you'd say is ordinary like black leather and stuff. You do like a lot of different stuff with colours and like textured leather and things like that. And I wondered where that came from. You sort of experimenting with those different types of uppers.
I think Trevor deserves a bit of credit for pushing the boundaries of the kinds of leather used in clog upper manufacture. And I think it's probably accurate to say that accelerated once he moved to Wales and started getting involved with Welsh step dancing scene, which is very diverse in its tastes when it comes to clogs. And I think Trevor then sort of started making the patent up. It's not like he's the first person ever to make a pair of patent leather clogs, but I think he made it more of an option. And so then I couldn't go back from that. In fact, one of the first orders I had was for someone who had placed an order through Trevor, and he passed them straight on to me, and it was for some patent leather uppers. I thought, well, again, we'll have to work out how to make these then. But having done that, it occurred to me that actually you don't have to stop at patent. You can go with the metallics, and I think the best ones I've done are the one that's a cowhide, but it's tanned with the hair still on, and then overprinted with a jaguar spot pattern.
Wow. So
they're like furry, and then you have to work out that the sort of nap of the fur follows the direction of the clog, so you can stroke them from front to back. It's quite disconcerting, really, but they're fun, and they have sold remarkably well, actually. And if I come across a leather that I think looks interesting and it's not going to break the bank, I'll buy it and make a pair of clogs and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And there's normally some Welsh teenage girl who'll go, yes,
I'll have them.
Thank you.
I'll take them, thanks. Do you make them for people all around the world?
I do.
Well? Where's the furthest they've gone?
The furthest they've gone is Australia, in terms of, as the crow flies.
Yeah.
The most well-travelled pair I ever made went to North Carolina, but they went there via Chicago and San Francisco, which is not the most obvious way. It took about a month to get there. And I think the most obscure place to go is Patagonia, where there's a little enclave of Welsh culture.
Oh, wow.
So Welsh people settled in Patagonia before Argentina was a country. So they speak Spanish, but they speak Welsh. As well, and they dance Welsh club dances and Welsh folk dancing and have Welsh language schools. And so
that's amazing.
Yeah. So every now and again, I get an order that I don't post them out there. Someone comes and they put them all in a suitcase and take them with them.
Right. It's like, who's in the UK next, right?
Yeah, basically.
We'll send them over.
It's this outfit called the Patagonia Instrument Project.
Wow.
And I think they take as the name suggests.
So I read somewhere, I can't remember whether it was you that was talking about this or whether it was Phil Howard. Phil Howard is one of the other main clog makers in the UK at the moment, and I believe it's just the two of you, unless I'm wrong in that.
Yeah, there's Jeremy as well, Jeremy
Yes,
Atkinson.
sorry, yes.
But he is different. He does carve his soles entirely by hand, which is an awesome skill, but it means that his clogs are very expensive compared with mine and Phil's. And mine and Phil's are, you know, there is a difference. I'm more expensive than Phil, but we're kind of in the same area, really. And Jeremy's a double because of the extra work.
Yeah.
As a result, he doesn't make as many for dancing.
Right.
So serving dancers, it is basically me.
Yeah. So there's kind of the dancing side, there's you and Phil, and I can't remember which one of you said it, but that clog making is what is considered to be like an endangered craft now, and I kind of wanted to ask you your, I guess, thoughts on that, and do you think there is a solution to this, or do you think that's just kind of how it is in the climate, or like how crucial it is to kind of engage with these different craft making traditions and things?
The way I got into it was through furniture making, which is a much more generic craft. I mean, the thing is, nobody's doing a degree in clog making.
Yes.
But the problem is, I think, just a lack of more general craft skills. So if you came at clog making with no craft knowledge at all, it would be a pretty fearsome learning curve. You'd have to learn woodworking, you'd have to learn leatherworking, shoemaking, put them all together. Which I did do, but some qualified people taught me the woodworking side of things, and that gave me the ground, because leatherworking and once you can manipulate one material to a very high standard, you can kind of see how other materials are manipulated and branch out. So leatherworking seemed quite easy to me, having done furniture making. But the course I did, the HND course, ended when we finished it, 2004, I think that was, 2006. At the time, Leeds College of Art had a really good furniture department with lots of different courses running. They were obviously running all the non-degree courses into the ground at the time. I don't know that they've got a furniture department at all now. I don't say they don't, but it's certainly, if they do, it's a shadow of what it was. And it's now called Leeds Arts University, which I think kind of tells you the direction that they wanted to head in. And all the sort of vocational training in practical skills has been eroded. Buckingham, Chilterns, whatever they call themselves now, that was a big centre for furniture making, and I think the offerings there are a shadow of what they were. So if nobody's got these generic craft skills, because they're very difficult to do in the normal progression of GCSEs and then A levels and then whatever you do next, it was quite easy for me to do furniture making, but it wouldn't be now. And without furniture making, I wouldn't have had the confidence to start making clogs. So that's the problem. There's not enough people with generic craft skills. And I don't think they're probably taught particularly thoroughly at school either. Careers advisor, probably another problem. You know, just the push for academic, trying to squeeze everyone into the academic sausage machine. That's probably been a bad thing for the last 30 years or so. And there are shortages in all kinds of relatively unglamorous trades, like plumbing and electricianing and roofing and all those kind of things, let alone clog making and basket weaving and glass eye making and all these other things.
Do you think it may become a problem in the future if kind of craft skills and crafting and working in this way doesn't improve?
Yeah, I get the sense that when Rick and Trevor and Jeremy Atkinson were all roughly doing clog making at the same time, they had an experience that was rather like mine, which I think was go around, find some clog makers, have a go, keep having a go until you're good enough, And by the time you've made one pair of clogs, you might as well try and make a living out of it because you've got all the gear
Yeah.
and you've got some idea how to use it by then. But I'm sure they would have had already. Well, I know for a fact that Trevor had already been working in furniture. Can't quite remember what Rick's background was, but they'd have done more woodworking at school than anybody does these days. I look at the things my dad made when he was at school in the 50s, and he was cutting dovetails and things like that. He's not an immensely practical man, but that was the calibre of school woodworking lessons. And I remember when I was at school, I didn't even do the woodworking class because it was so basic in its scope. I thought, well, it's not even interesting to me. So it's the big issue. I think the sort of viability of the commercial viability of doing something obscure is also possibly a barrier, but it's not the main one. I think it's just lack of skills.
Right, that's really interesting. And I think what you said about your dad was quite interesting, because I think that a bit about my granddad, because like my granddad's 91 and I can give him anything, any piece of wood, or ask him to make something, and he has all of those skills and knows how to do it, like, straight away, and he doesn't even have to, so I totally, it's just really interesting, like, I guess the change in skill sets that's happened maybe through the generations, and what, not so much what has come, because all of these new skills are fantastic, but maybe what's been left behind, maybe.
There was at the Heritage Crafts Awards I went to in 2019, primarily because I won 2 of them, but there was someone there, one of the speakers, who said that it's not just a problem in the craft sphere, that people doing medical degrees were having to be taught how to sew because they couldn't stitch up patients without. I mean, I dare say stitching up a patient is a bit different to
stitching a pair of clogs.
Yeah, well, or to fixing a hole in your pocket. But they had no knowledge whatsoever of how to use a needle and thread. So people on medical degrees were having to be taught how to use a needle and thread. That's presumably time that could have been better spent teaching them how to. I don't know. I don't know what it is. What do doctors do? Make people
fix people.
Yeah. But, it sounds a bit facetious.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But it sort of has the lack of practical skills that we have as a society. I think the tentacles of that get everywhere.
Yeah.
And for clog making, it's possibly an existential threat. For surgery, not so much. But it is interesting to note how the lack of just generic, everyday practical skills is impacting on things that you wouldn't necessarily think of like that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've got one more question, and I wanted to ask, so on just a general day in the office here, what does a generic day look like, and do you have anything that you either like listen to or anything like that? Like what does a generic day in the office look like for you?
I get in about 8, and I try and structure the week so that I make soles, a batch of soles, a batch of uppers, and I get them in the lasts, so that they're drying, so the leather's drying on the lasts over the weekend.
Right.
So that on Monday morning I can pop them out of the lasts and go again. It doesn't really work like that, but at least in my mind that's something to
the thoughts there.
Yeah. So the days are I've got the calendar over there, and I'll kind of plot the week in advance. And just get on with it really. I'm pretty focused. I don't spend time doom scrolling, and I have the radio on. Stop at 12 o'clock to listen to Jeremy Vine for half an hour while I have my lunch. Depress myself about the state of the world, and then crack on. Yeah, are
you more of a radio listener and rather than just music on?
Yeah, I think so, because I listen to radio too because it's completely sort of disposable. Whereas if I listen to Radio 4, I maybe get interested in the programmes and then like, well, I really need to machine these soles, but I want to know what Melvin Bragg has to say about illuminated manuscripts from the 12th century. And music is the same.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, I know in 2 tracks time it's going to be such and such. So I'm just going to, but yeah, Radio 2, it just goes on and off. So I can go in the room over there,
Mm-hmm.
make a load of noise, ear defenders on for the whole day, and not feel like I've missed anything.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it has to be background, not distraction.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Well, I could probably ask you about a million other questions, but I think we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much for doing this. And yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
So that was Simon Brock. I enjoyed that so much. I think the sort of clog nerd in me was just having an amazing time. And it was so nice to speak to him. It's kind of, you hear these different clog makers' names, I think, throughout the years, and you don't really know anything about them. And it was so nice to actually get to understand a bit more about what they did and what they did for like the making and the tradition and that kind of transition from industry to dance. And yeah, it was just so nice. And something that I kind of realised when I was editing the podcast, which I wish I'd said in the I wish I'd made that connection when we were doing the interview, was so my clogs, the uppers on my clogs, so the leather, was made by a clog maker called Rick Rubitsky, who, as you heard in the interview, stopped making clogs in the mid-90s. So my clogs must be, 40 years old, maybe a little bit older even. And Simon uses the lasts of the moulds, which you would have seen if you're watching it on the video, on the back wall. My clogs would have been made by those same lasts moulds 40 years ago, and they were just kind of sat on the wall, and I kind of hadn't made that connection that my clogs were made by them, and I think that's very cool. I think it's very cool to see a skill and a craft and a tradition as clog making being passed down and being, I guess, supported like through the generations, and people helping each other to be able to keep this craft alive, and long may it continue, because clog dancing is great, and I've always said it and I always will. So speaking of clog dancing, I'm actually about to go and do quite a lot of clog dancing this week. Pretty much after I've finished this and edited this onto the podcast, I'm going to be driving down to Sidmouth Folk Festival. I'm going to be out dancing with my old team. I used to be in a group called the Fosbrooks, which is a group based in Stockport, where I'm from, and based out of the school that I went to as a kid. And I'm going to be going to dance with them for a few days. If you've never seen the Fosbrooks before, please, go and check them out. They're an amazing group which do amazing things for young people in the northwest of England. So please go and check them out and support them. And if you want to see some clog dancing in real life, come and see me on tour. I'm on tour in autumn. We're heading to loads of places across England, so if you want to come and see some clog dancing, which I will be doing, I promise, then please come and do that. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, tell your friends, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye!